You're good to go. Everything's rolling.
Yeah.
We'll go right to 6:30. Good evening, everybody. Maybe we'll see a little sunlight before we leave. I know it's 50-50. Don't be going wild.
That's
That's not. Oh,
That's going to be in a.
I know it.
See, that's a good point. That's not as high of a bar as you think it is.
I know. It used to be a really high bar. Remember that? You're right.
Let the minutes reflect that the mayor.
I know.
Yes.
Mine's on now.
Oh, I understand that. I'm gonna be on more often.
That's
Kind of a meeting.
Thank you. That's, I understand. One of the quickest meetings. Duly noted, President accepted.
But I will take credit for it.
Yeah, that's good.
Data's data.
Data is data. I'm showing it's 6:30. We're good to roll. We're live. We have those online. Good. So I am opening up this meeting. This is 6:30 for the Norfolk City Council meeting on the 2nd of June, our first meeting in June. We'll start if everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. And right over here to my left. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. So some of you, not too many newbies here, and this is great. There's not a whole lot of people, but I'm kind of your master of ceremonies. If you didn't, when you come in to the right, there's different agendas right on the wall there if you need to follow. We've gone through one, the Pledge of Allegiance. We did the call of order. Clerk, if we could do the roll call, please. Thank you.
Turnbull. Morosky Brown.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Janetti. Here. Krenz.
Here.
Great. So that handles number 2. Number 3, the approval of the agenda. You have that in front of you. Is there anything to add or to delete from the regular agenda at this moment in time? If not, I'm looking for a motion that's in your package to go forward with this agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Super. We have a motion and we have support. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great. We have an agenda. Now we're number 4 to public comment. If it's on the agenda, I will give you 2 minutes for everything on the agenda. If it's not on the agenda, this would be the time. And things that we'll talk about, we'll have a presentation on Ford Field. We're looking at the zoning for air conditioning. If you're here to talk about that, I'll give you 2 minutes on that. On new business, consideration of approving the first reading on the lot splits. I will give you time on that. And the second part of that, Toll Brothers to amend the downs planned on some lots that they're going to talk about today. And that is, if you're here to talk about that, I will give you your 2 minutes. If there's anything other than that, this is the time to come up to the podium. Anybody in council chambers, this would be the time. Come right up. Give your full name and address. Absolutely. You have 2 minutes and let her rip.
Anything here? Okay, I'm Jennifer Buchanan, 216 West Street.
Yep.
I just want to express my dismay or just my concern in kindness
Yes.
about the Metz professional services, conceptual design and future. Seems to me we've had a lot of these, I think, and we're going to do another one. And I'm not sure any of the past have been very productive or have yielded anything. So I'm asking to just keep that in mind, something to think of. And do we really need a bag toss tournament if our supposed to shut down, I think at 9 o'clock, and we're going to have something go till 10 o'clock at night? I think after some of the voices that we heard at the last meeting about the noise and things like that, it would be nice to sort of stay on track. And also, is the 100 past door thing within this as well?
No, you'll have a chance to talk on that. So you get 2 extra minutes on that thing.
That was.
Thank you very much. Good. Is there anybody that has something other than what's on the agenda? We may, it's usually not, but if some of those consent agenda items might be moved up, but those are some of the consent. Anything else here? Okay, going once, going twice. Closing off here, public comment. Is there any hand raisers? Why don't you just say one time how to raise your hand? We do this every week.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If anyone that is watching the YouTube channel would like to make a comment, you'll need to call in on the telephone. The detailed instructions are on the agenda. Essentially, once you're in the meeting, we'll ask that you raise your virtual hand and we'll call the last 4 digits of your phone number. And at this time, Mr. Mayor, there are no callers on the line and you're at 5 viewers and it's still spooling up.
Okay, 5 viewers, they're getting in there. They'll have a chance for each one of the deals. Okay, so we put it out there online, nobody going once, going twice. Okay, so public comment, other than things on the agenda, I'm closing that off right now. Now let's go to the consent agenda. And this is anything to add or delete or to talk about on that?
But we did receive 2
Public comment.
written communications. If you're looking for it online on the diligence site, one is related to an item not on the agenda, so that's higher up, higher
Right.
up and under where public comment. And then the other is under that topic. And the topic was one of the second reading on the generators. So it's just in a different spot.
Yep.
I like the way Courtney did it, but I wanted to.
So no, if you want to write something, if you're here before 4 o'clock and put it in the system, we will give it to everybody. It'll go online. So we had a couple that went out there right about that at the time. Everything is in there. I expect everybody to read what's online that came in. Thanks. I almost went.
Well,
through
and I
that.
wanted just so they could find where it is because it's in a
Right.
different spot.
Yep.
Does anybody want to read it?
Good point. So that is for a written communications received. So again, you have that chance to write. Go
I
ahead.
apologize. I didn't mean to speak.
Yep,
over you.
no
We
problem.
had 2 comments here. One was added late from Nancy Cherry,
Oh, I didn't see that.
late this afternoon. So make sure you get one there and read that.
Right.
And we had the one from Cindy Brayson that was posted. And then we have Tom Barry's comment later on tied
Right.
to the topic.
Oh, I didn't get the one from Nancy Cherry.
So make sure you read that, council.
Great.
that read
Good
it.
point. And they're there for the public. If it's not in there tonight, we'll make sure that's on. If it came past that 4 o'clock deadline, we have those and we have access.
Those are all on the diligence side.
They're all,
They've
okay,
been
they're all,
uploaded.
they're all.
Nancy did
Okay,
as well.
great. That's what I thought you said, but
What did it? I went to 5:30 because I thought if I do it 5:30 on my second download, I'll be okay. Apparently not.
we'll get you a guy. I know a guy.
Well, no, I did download it, but it was not late enough. So
So we're through 4. Number 5, consideration of approving things on the consent agenda. We had on the public comment, a couple things we talked about. This is a chance if you want to bring any of those, on the regular agenda. If not, that is what's on there. It's minutes and accepting bills and the 4th of July parade and the Michigan Teal Ovarian Cancer Awareness Campaign, consideration of a bag toss tournament, which we heard a little bit about there, considered from DDA, consideration of music in the Ville, and consideration of a professional service. That is all the things that are on the consent agenda. Is there anything, any comments or anything to delete, add? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to go forward with the consent agenda.
move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Great. So we have a motion, we have support. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I think we can do this. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, great. So now we're on to presentations. We're going to be just dazzled by Wendy here on Ford Field on a very quick update. We've been doing these just to make sure everybody knows what's going on. So the crowd is going, and we're ready for it. Ford Field Gateway update. Wendy, it's all yours.
I hope he's not overselling it. When
I know.
I don't know, he may be a little. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to update you quickly on the time for the Ford Field Gateway project. As you're aware, on April 7th, you awarded a contract to AAA, doing business as Soleil, and they are prepared to begin work here in the next couple of weeks. So they expect to be doing mobilization, site staking, and installing the soil erosion and sedimentation control measures here this week. So people will potentially start to see some markings on trees and some things happening in the site. We are going to have a community meeting next week, Thursday at 6:30. We'll be meeting here. And that's an opportunity for anybody in the community to come in and visit about the project, hear about the details of the work and the schedule, et cetera, and share with us their contact information so we can keep them up to date throughout the project. Then we have DT coming in the week of June 16th to begin the pole replacement. I'm not sure exactly what all they will do in terms of if they have any tree removals planned or anything like that. But just so people know, that's going to be the first thing that really starts happening on that site. Then we will be talking to the HDC on Wednesday, June 18th. I wanted to be sure that you were aware of this because it has been raised to us in terms of has the HDC seen this project and approved it. And so we will be talking to them. We kind of had to wait until a little late in the process because they like to see samples of everything, et cetera. So we'll talk to them on June 18th. And then we're looking at tree removal and construction beginning towards the end of the month. So that's a real quick summary. I don't know if you have any questions or anything else you want to bring up.
Questions for Wendy?
Yeah, do you know what the traffic control measures are going to need to be? And it's going to be sporadic off and on?
We do have a traffic control plan. We have told the contractor that he can't close the road down. Now, if something comes up where he needs to, that may happen, but it won't be shut down during the entire
Okay, but
construction.
there could be periodic if they have a big truck with something dropping. something
Yes,
off.
there could be some periodic closures, and they're likely, as they're working on the sidewalk, because of how narrow it is there, they're likely to have some flag people in place to direct traffic around. So
Is there a limit in length if they have a periodic closure of how long that would be?
it would be something that we'd have to talk through with the Director of Department of Public Works as well as our police chief to figure that out.
Okay.
Typically, when they submit their permit, they do have to tell us what their duration of closure is.
Okay, that's, yeah, it was all I was going to suggest is being proactive and establishing expectations of if they're going to be closing it. If it goes beyond a certain length,
Yeah.
we would need to get further approvals.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you. I understand that you met with some folks from the Riverwalk Task Force and also the Ford Field, the combined Ford Field. And how did that go? And because you think there was a site visit, you guys walked the site?
Yes, we did. We walked the site because they had expressed some interest. I'm not going to say concern. They had expressed interest in what was planned for potentially vegetation removal and just where that was going to be. And there really is only maybe one tree that they would really like to see us try and avoid and keep in place if we could. But anything else that's potentially needing to be removed doesn't have a whole lot of value from a nature standpoint. All vegetation has value from, shade, oxygen, et cetera, but not high quality plant material.
Yeah, and there's also the consideration of erosion control,
Mhm.
even for a scrub bush.
Right.
All right, thank you. Those were my only.
Absolutely.
Others? Great. Outstanding.
right.
Keep these updates
you.
coming. A quick one like this would be great every meeting because we're gonna start doing some wild and exciting things down there
It's gonna
very
be
soon for the
happening.
gateway and the area on top and where we're going to have that overhang. I think that's starting within weeks. So it's all approved. Thank you. Thank you
Okay,
very much,
thank
Wendy.
you.
Appreciate that. Okay, so let's go to number 7. There are no public hearings tonight. So we are really whipping through this. Unfinished business, consideration of approving the second reading and adoption of amendments, Article 18, Section 24 of the Zoning Ordinance, air conditioning condensers and emergency electric generators. Tell us all about the generators of life. You are the expert.
So council met on May 5th and discussed the second reading of the generator ordinance. At that time, there was some resident feedback that council had received as well as staff with some concerns about what was initially recommended. So you deferred that ordinance to staff to consider that feedback and make some changes. We've done that. I've outlined the changes in your staff report, so I'm not going to go through them all, but If you do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great. Is there anything else from your standpoint?
No.
Anything to add?
No, I think it was a reasonable attempt by staff to try to strike a balance and be a little less restrictive, but while still trying to further the purpose of the planning commission. And obviously, if council has concerns, you can certainly make motions and make changes and pass it. If there's anything that you want to change, make that motion. And if it gets support, that's certainly what we'll implement.
And we heard a lot after that first reading, you know, we're all talking, what is it? What isn't it? We got a lot of feedback, I think all of us, and we asked you to get with other municipalities around here, you know, look at it in great detail. So they spent about 6 or 7 months of planning commission. They did a great job. You know, they set the foundation for it all. In some areas, it seemed maybe a little bit more restrictive, but we heard some things. We passed it the first time. And you spent 3 months kind of looking at it and understanding, you know, what we could do. So I thank you for that time on it. I think it's a balance, but to your point, George, I think this is a work in progress. You know, we will keep looking at it and honing it in the future because it is unusual. Generators, sometimes they have electric batteries for the first couple hours, you know, with sunlight, you know, with solar panels. It's almost unusual. It's an oxymoron, a generator that's silent. So I think we keep looking at that as you go forward. I know you've spent a lot of time on that, and I thank you for that. So other comments or?
Yeah, Mayor, maybe I'll just walk through it just to get some stuff on public record so we know what we're talking about. So you had a lot of feedback after the first session. We got that back. You incorporated some of that language, but I think this body is probably going to want to discuss some of those changes. Potentially, I don't want to speak for any of my colleagues here, probably do some rollback on a little bit of that. So as I understand it right now, what's proposed is location of the rear, in the rear of the home is less than 8 feet for the unit. So it could be a AC condenser or an emergency generator is removed or not removed.
It's proposed to be removed.
Okay. And then location in the side yard setback. There was discussion in the original language coming out of planning commission of if you're going to go into the side yard setback, which is, by the way, not allowed in the current ordinance, correct?
It cannot be in the setback in the current ordinance.
Right. All right. So then the language came to us that it was 25-foot setback. My general opinion is I think that's a little too punitive, and most homes do not have a 25-foot plus 4, 5, 6 foot setback. So it really wouldn't apply to anybody.
Right.
And it's not addressing the primary issue, the two of them in my view, which is sound at the board or sound at the lot line and screening. So one item I would like to do is make sure or have discussion along this board that we remove the 25-foot setback because it doesn't actually address the problem in my view. A couple more things here. All right, so we did eliminate, and if you would go, just give us a couple minutes on the approval process, because we did eliminate the requirement for post-installation sound testing by the Community Development Department. And I think, just so we're all aware, we're still talking about the permanent concrete slab, hardwired, 240 volt into the house, 60 amp, whatever it is. This is hardwired stuff with screening. And then there was discussion that you would have a sound check at that point at 6 feet up at the lot line, but I don't know if it didn't feel like that was the right thing to do, because if someone's off by a couple decibels, are we going to ask them to undo thousands of dollars of development if they're off by 3 decibels? So can you elaborate on two things in terms of how we're going to approve this as a city and maybe how that's changes? First is in the site plan. So when somebody presents a site plan to you, they say they're going to point X marks the spot. This is where it's going to go. And then also the other part of it, which I'm keenly concerned about, is going to be the decibel level at the neighbor's lot line. Can you maybe comment on how that's evolved on the approval process?
Sure. So you mentioned, as was proposed by the Planning Commission, that there would be city staff on site sound testing these generators post-installation. So if there were to be an issue, it really would be difficult to rectify because there's already been mechanical and electrical work done to locate this generator. thousands of dollars in purchasing the generator and any associated mechanical or electrical work.
And our inspector would have been there before too.
Right, so
On
it
electrical.
is
Yep,
it would
yep,
be
gotcha.
additional,
Yep.
staff inspection requirement. As proposed in your draft ordinance tonight, we would review a site plan showing where this would be located, how many feet from the property line, what screening there would be, and then they would have to provide staff manufacturer specifications of the generator itself, so we could review that with their permit applications. So
We'll probably know too, the screening is now getting pretty modern with sound deadening material in it. So it's more than just a screen. It's
screening
that.
could be a
Yep.
cabinet. Sometimes
Okay.
generators can be placed in a cabinet. We also allow landscape screening that's at least 12 inches taller than the equipment itself. So, from a street level view, if it's in the side yard and you have screening that's taller than the units, you shouldn't see it. So
Right.
whether it's fencing, landscaping, an enclosure, there's different methods to screen
Okay.
a generator.
And as the mayor alluded to, let's say the latest generation of these generators are extremely efficient. And extremely efficient means that they don't give out energy via sound nearly as much as they used to. So it is extremely common for Generac and everybody else to provide natural gas full home generators that have an ambient sound of below 65 decibels, which is only a little bit louder than this room.
Right.
And just so everybody's aware, there's a big difference between 65, 75, and 85 because it's not a linear relationship. It's a doubling of energy. So I think the hardware exists there. So, but we also got to be aware that there's no standard on sound emission from these. So we'll have to make sure that as we're watching, that you see what it is and that it's clear that you can then do that, apply the calculation. But I'm going to submit to you that in most cases, the next generation of home generators are going to be much quieter than what the limit at the fence is. But just keep an eye on that because there's no industry standard on noise emission and where that's rated. Emergency generators real quick. There was some discussion there. I think it was in 14-24.b. Emergency generators shall be no more than 85 decibels at the lot line. And that there was discussion, I think that had bumped up from 75 in the first revision to 85 here. That's a doubling of energy, not necessarily sound, but that's how decibels work on a log scale. I was again looking here. So my concern with the one thing I do not want, there's two things I do not want to do that I can't support are first, is there even a technical solution for a portable generator that will emit 75 decibels or less? So everybody knows the old ones are extraordinarily loud, but now with muffler systems, tuning to peak load, encasing, like engine balancing and everything else, you can easily find these in 5 minutes that are going to emit less than 75 decibels from the source. So with that, I'd like to roll back the 85 requirement to 75 because again, the same improvement applies to the mobile generators. There's massive improvements going on with respect to noise emissions cutting way down due to efficiency improvements. So I'm on board. I don't know what the rest of the team is here, but I would like to roll that back again from 85 to 75 because
On the portable generator.
on the portable. I think we're going to have almost a non-issue on sound from the permanent generators based on what's out there now. But it still has to be checked, trust but verify. So, and one of the unintended consequences potentially of going from 75 to 85 is somebody in the community might go for an 85 decibel generator or whatever that would equate to from, the distance to the lot line and not look at the 75 decibels. So even if you have a technical solution in place, people won't buy it. So then you just continue to have an aggregation of these like high sound output devices over time, which I don't think with the technical solutions out there, I don't think that would be something that I would support. So you do have solutions on the market. Another one is on the time frame. I'm not running, was it portable generators between 11 and 7? I think that has to go. And it's not because so much of, and I'm looking at this from the purview of not the neighbor, but the resident, that if we have residents that are using CPAP machines or if they're cooling medication.
Lights on.
Yeah, to me, it's I know it could be a nuisance, especially on older generators, but those will start to work out over time. But if you have somebody who has a CPAP machine, that's a health and safety matter. And I think in my hierarchy of needs, that's above a nuisance noise level on the rare nights that they don't have it. So I would like to support the rollback of portable generators between 11 and 7 for safety reasons. Because most of the time, those aren't going to be doing whole homework. They're probably going to be critical things. And we have a lot of residents that are dependent on power overnight.
We do.
And I think those might be my, big ones. So thank you, everybody, for letting me get through it. But I think there was 4 or 5 major things we had to discuss. And I just want to get the marker out.
And the major one that I heard you say is the 75 going from 85 to 75. The rest are.
And again, 75 decibels is less than your neighbor's lawn being mowed by their own lawnmower. So just keep that in mind. That is, it's noticeable, but it is not extraordinarily loud. And you can look that up. That could be vigorous in-room discussion we're having here. So if we raised our voices to each other, you and me, Justin, if we had to, it's probably 75. We start yelling and throwing things, it's going to be 80 or more. And it's just, that's how the energy goes. So 75 is very manageable, and you probably experience it all the time in your neighborhood.
And to your point, the newer ones are that quiet. I mean,
Newer ones are
the
getting
generators
quiet,
are a lot
hurry.
more engine,
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
on it, you know.
And I know
5 horsepower
Plymouth
engine.
Reed wrote theirs in 24, but this is, the mark is moving on this, and I'd like to get ahead of Plymouth on this. So I'd say knock it down to 75 and encourage people to get those generators.
You can certainly insert whatever sound threshold you'd like into the ordinance.
Okay. And I took up a lot of time here, Mayor. I
No
apologize,
problem.
but
I think you
that's fine.
handled some of the things from others.
Yep.
Other comments for Justin on this? Any
All right.
others?
Well, a lot of what I was going to cover was actually just addressed, so I will be briefer in how I approach them. With regard to the decibel level and the sound, as Councilmember Crenn said, that is the main objective here, the noise level at the property line. I would agree with moving that to 75. For new generators that are being purchased, especially, the technology's out there, and we should be encouraging that lower level. And it really does make a big difference. On the location front, I understand the reason that we moved from the 25. Depending on where my fellow council members fall, I probably would not have corrected all the way to 5. In full disclosure, I would like it to be further from the property line. I think if we can find a reasonable area in between that walks that line of making it feasible, so we're not ruling out and making it de facto people aren't able to put in a generator, but also keeping it at a far enough distance that it's not close to your neighbor's home. I would like to come to a conclusion of an adjustment on that number, and we can talk through that. The timing is one that I will admit I have moved from a personal standpoint, because Main Street gets incredibly loud when the power goes out and it goes through the night, and I am one of those people who complains. But I also did receive the emails about many of our neighbors, residents, that for health and safety reasons need to have access and a generator overnight, and I think, as was pointed out, that is the priority. I'm still going to complain, but I think it's the right decision to
Me too. Yeah.
to allow that 11 to 7 a.m. And I think it's a reasonable recognition.
Yep.
And then the biggest question that I wanted to talk through is really enforcement, because it's one thing to create, and we can argue about 85, 75. But if we're not requiring testing when they're installed, what is the equipment that we're going to purchase? What's the process to identify? Is it based on a complaint? What triggers the enforcement process? So if we could talk a little bit about how we'd envision that working, because I think in any ordinance, that's the most important part.
So we'll review the specifications that are submitted with their application, make sure that they're complying with our ordinance standards. That would be the precipice to getting a permit issued. And then they're required, these generator units, to adhere to those standards during operation. And so if there is a potential issue and we're alerted to that, then obviously we would have to follow up on that, potential complaint. And if they're in violation, we'd have to correct it.
Okay, so it would basically be if someone complained that it was above the level, we would then go out, we would then verify that the generator that's been installed meets what was submitted in their application
Correct.
and what our ordinance includes.
Does enforce that.
We have a part-time code enforcement officer.
Well, Frank, right?
Yeah.
Hank,
He has his own car too, doesn't
Yes. We
he has a nice little sign.
he? He does. And he will have the monitor with him. Yep.
If I could just address, there was a question about finding the level of a setback from a generator for a property line. So the current ordinance doesn't allow generators in a side yard setback, and the side yard setback is either 7 or 8 feet, depending on what zoning district you're in. All of the variance requests that we see coming to the BZA for generators are to locate them in the side yard setback. And so the idea behind this ordinance initially was, how can we reduce some of the variance requests that are coming to the BZA and allow some flexibility? And so 5 feet, first 25 feet went the opposite way. It's effectively prohibiting generators at all in a side yard. Moving it to 5 feet is either 2 or 3 feet relief, depending on what zoning district you're in. I don't know where you go between the current ordinance of meeting the setback of 7 or 8 feet, which we could maintain. That's what's in the current ordinance, or 5 feet. There's really not much wiggle room between the current ordinance and the 5 feet. It just depends on what the goal is. A couple feet of relief may reduce variance requests coming to the BZA. They're all for coming.
And this was brought to our attention too, because the BZA had an awful lot of these. And we had a meeting today, I think, Mayor Pro Tem and myself listening to BZA, and they're the first ones that hear, what is the opportunities? And this was an opportunity 1.5 years, 2 years ago. So the Planning Commission worked on it. So from my standpoint, we have to look at that. And the one issue was putting in the backyard to your 20 or 25 feet.
And I think part of it was, if you eliminate that requirement that the units are within 8 feet of the house, there's the opportunity, if somebody has an accessory building, to locate it there, which is what a lot of people like to do. Part of the reason they don't want them within 8 feet of the house in the backyard is because that's where people's decks and patios are. And so, there's not a lot of space for outdoor recreation on your own lot if you have the generator right, off the back step, going to the yard.
So you put them in the back, shield them, and put the sound down.
I think the intent of this ordinance was to provide a little bit of flexibility while still trying to maintain a certain level of standard. I think we've done that. I think changing the sound level will address a lot of the concerns from 85 back to 75. But in terms of location, I think it's either, do you like the current ordinance, or do you want to go to 5 feet to allow a little flexibility?
Go right ahead.
So,
You have more, John?
no, you can go. Do you have?
What do you recommend?
It just depends on if we want to continue to see variances at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we keep the ordinance the same, we'll still keep getting those requests. 5 feet may eliminate some of those. I don't know.
But not too many, you're thinking.
I think it will eliminate. If you give people an extra 2 or 3 feet, I think will help a lot.
Okay.
But related to the side yard setback, the original ordinance didn't allow it.
They had to meet the side yard setback.
Yeah, they had to meet that. Okay, so I'm gonna, are you set? Okay. So I'm gonna back up 1 minute and say, why are we so focused on this? And having watched over months, the Planning Commission, they put a lot of thought into this. And it was good to get that feedback from the BZA to them that we need relief on this. And and sitting and watching for a long time, I think I missed one where they were talking about it, but the rest of them, and they really went back and forth, and the subgroup brought a lot of information forward. So it was really excellent. And the balance was flexibility for the homeowner that wants to put in a generator, right? And you want to be able to them to place it. And it was just it was overly restrictive before. But the balance is in consideration of adjacent nearby property owners. And so it's that balance. So, so they were very cognizant of that. And so what they presented to us, which we are now modifying, did both of those things. And we're tweaking it, but we don't want to gut it. So they did not, I do want to just say, it says, we amended it for overly restrictive local regulations. What they gave us wasn't overly restrictive. We're tweaking it, right? But it was not. The 8 feet, they found their subgroup, and then what they brought back, that many municipalities are less than 8 feet. So I'm okay with moving the 8 feet, but basically what we're saying now is put it anywhere in your yard within 5 feet of the lot line. And I think that is, because what is human nature for the homeowner? I just put a generator in at my cottage, so I'm aware of what I wanted to do as a homeowner. get it away from my house, you know, and so I wasn't seeing it and I wasn't viewing it. So now it's all over the place. And we did have a situation where one was placed at the back of a garage. And that homeowner, which was really close, it's horrible noise, right? Because they're all not quiet yet. So I think that we just have to be careful. So I'm uncomfortable with going from 8 feet to nothing, putting it anywhere. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if it should be 15 or 20 feet or whatever it is to deal with the problem, because we have seen it where their patio or deck is there. There really isn't a place to put it. So I'm worried about just removing the 8 feet completely. I was taken, of course, at the first reading, I mentioned the concern about the 25 feet, that I thought it was too restrictive, right? But it was sort of like, well, we have flexibility to change it. If you get too much feedback that you're having to bounce stuff to BZA, you can do it. Now, I'm fine changing it to 25, but going to 5 so that it's within the setback, I'm very uncomfortable with. And that concern is, again, what is my concern? I want to have that flexibility, that they've got a lot of room on their property to be able to put it, but at the same time, to not have everything pushed to the edge of their property so that it's the adjacent property owners. And that those two concerns become amplified when if we're gonna raise that to 85. Because what the Planning Commission's subgroup found was that 75, which is what they went to, was higher than most municipalities. Most municipalities were more where we were at before. It was lower, 55 or 65. So 75 was quite a bump up from the ones they looked at. Now, I know you said communities consistent with standards in other communities, and you gave Plymouth. It's true, Plymouth is at 85, but they did not find other communities at 85. So it's not common.
I found others. I just.
Yeah,
looked at a bunch
well,
of
I think
places.
but I'm just saying, it isn't like, oh, everybody's at 85, right? So I'm comfortable if we bring it to 75. I would be fine leaving it at 85. My biggest concern is we're no longer testing, that we're not doing a sound test. And I don't know, I just don't, we say in here, we say, we have 2 statements and it's still in there that the sound is as measured, but we're not measuring. And I don't know, I think it's like, how are you, what I feel is, again, this thing with adjacent property owners, I don't think we should write an ordinance that the solution is, well, let's see if the neighbors complain after we approve the installation, which is where we're at. But I don't know, you're saying it's they've put it in and it's all this expense, and I get that. You'd have to have it moved if that was the case, or you have to put better sound control around it, that sound absorption. So I'm, when we're saying, oh, you can put it pretty much anywhere you want in the property, oh, it's fine if you put it within the setback, and oh, we're going to raise the sound to 85, which is, high, and we're not even going to check it. And I know that I agree, I did get a Generac, okay? So Generac is better at doing that, but one of the other findings, and the reason that they put that in there, but they raising it to 75, I'm talking about when it came out of planning, is because not all generator manufacturers are Generac. There are others. I can't wait till we get to a day that it can all be
Right.
silent, right? Because it's a different
And they
kind
meet
of-
that standard, and supposedly
Right.
it's 75 out of the factory, and
Right,
we're
but
going in there and approving it.
So what their research indicated was that many manufacturers, other than Generac, sort of have sales brochures that tell them what it is, but it's not. Sort of like the sound on your dishwasher. It's supposed to be at 44. That is not 44 decibels coming out of that. So anyway, so those are my thoughts. I think I'd like to work on that 8 feet to say, let's do something bigger than 8 feet versus removing it completely. And can we find something other than 5, which means everybody's going to put it in their setback. I mean, it's within the setback. If we said it had to be, could not be in the setback, I think you said 7 feet, but many properties that would work. And right now, they don't even have that option, correct?
They can currently put them in the side yard if they meet the setback.
If they meet the
made
setback.
it,
So we're
right.
moving it, so if they had, well, and there's 2 setback numbers. I said 7.
They have
but
room
there's
on that
another.
side.
7 or 8, depending
Yeah.
on what zoning district.
Yeah,
you're in.
right. So I'm using 7, but I know it's different. That just seems really close to the lot line, compounded if we're not measuring sound.
And just by way of background, the planning commission made a recommendation, came for first reading, got approved, came for second reading. We had some concerns from the public. My direction was to take the concerns and incorporate them into the ordinance, which is what I've done. So
That
I'm
was-
happy to make changes to this based on your direction.
Yeah.
But this isn't Justin picking numbers out of the sky.
Oh, no.
I wanted to
And
get this
so-
clear.
Like I
You
said,
have
3
to
months.
know
worth
that I'm
of
the
work.
one you're the one I'm talking to,
Sure.
but I agree.
I
that
just wanted to be
you're-
that.
Well, and we gave you feedback and there was.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. So, but that.
We asked you to do this. We
doesn't mean
appreciate
I
it.
don't have a concern with what the
Yep.
change was, right?
Yep.
How far we've gone on this. So, and I guess in this, and this is a side thing, is that having sat at planning commission and then here at the first reading, we didn't get that kind of feedback. So usually we have public feedback. So it's for all of you, who's saying it, what are their concerns? This time it was whether it's emails or phone calls. And I really, what I'm hopeful for is those persons that gave you feedback, please encourage them to comment publicly. Because I don't, again, I think of all the balancing the planning commission did, and I don't know who was making these, their basis, their reason, if there was somebody that was denied. I don't know. There was nothing there was no public comment at planning commission or here. So, I think there might've been one at planning that they were grateful that there was a change, but that was about it.
The mayor and I both met with some residents and actually a couple of business owners about this ordinance and phone calls and emails.
Yeah, no, I'm not doubting that it occurred. I did.
A lot of phone
But I'm
calls
just
came in
saying,
and
we had,
so we
it's just,
sat down with
it's
a bunch
hard
of them.
for me for all of us to absorb the different comment when it wasn't public comment.
Right.
A lot of the
that makes it
feedback
tough.
was relative to challenges at the BZA of applicants wanting to put a generator in the side yard and not being granted a variance to do so. And so is there a solution? to
Oh, I
that?
was at
Yep.
those meetings too. It was tough.
Yep.
There was one after another. No, they couldn't, right? So anyway, that is so I'm open to a discussion. I think Andrew kicked it off also. John, I don't know what Laura's feelings are, but I'd like to, I just feel we've gutted it too far, and what can we do?
Yeah,
Laura, do you have?
yeah, I mean, I'm with Andrew on most of this stuff with the generator, not everything.
No worries.
So, but I also know that we have to move on from it. It might not be all 5 of us that have to have the perfect opinion, especially when you say it's we're gonna change it if it doesn't work here and there, but I think the work you've done is good. The work Andrew's done is good, and I don't think it needs all 5 of us on top of this one.
And as we said before, this is kind of a work in progress. It's been a long time since we did some of these ordinances, and
Yeah.
things are getting better from a technological standpoint and the sound deadening standpoint. We might have to look at this again. So I am open, from what I've heard here tonight and all the discussions we've had and people coming in, that sound level from 85 to 75. I'm rolling on that. I know we heard a lot, from people, but I think we can do that. And as we'll get input and we'll go out there, we'll have our ordinance guy with that meter going out there, and we have the policies and procedures when they put it in. It has to meet 75. That's without sound deadening and everything else that it comes from the factory. It will theoretically be quieter than that. The opportunity we're dealing with is all the old ones. If you have cottages or people that roll their, portable ones out, they're louder. We're looking forward as we go down the path. They will get quieter every year. Norfolk will be quieter than some other municipalities because some will be able to get newer rollouts, and what have you. So I appreciate all the work you've done. You've heard from a lot of those citizens. You brought me into some of those, and George. So we had 2 or 3 talking about that. We're not going to change every old generator overnight out there, but people will upgrade and they'll be more efficient and they'll be more fuel efficient. They'll pay for themselves sometime too. And the newer ones, like I said, with solar panels on them, there's zero. There's zero sound to them. It's almost unbelievable for the first X amount of time. So yes, we all appreciate, I know you took that a little personally. We appreciate all the work
I didn't
over the
take it personally.
last 3
It's
months.
not about Justin.
Because you heard everything on that. And I am, from what I've heard from council members, I'm willing to roll down from 85 to 75 and put our people out there, you know, when people are saying this is a little bit too loud to have our person out there. And I agreed, I think with every change that you said, we can't dictate in the middle of the night not to have generators on, because that's why people are alive, you know, in the whole bit. So it was almost ironic when I saw that, but we kind of let it, we looked at the first reading. So appreciate that. We'll get to that. But before we have the final discussion on that, I'd like to hear from those in the audience, and then we'll work it, and I'll look for a motion that we will, in my opinion, definitely go from 85 to 75. But that was just my opinion.
Yeah, well, and I forgot to mention about the time. I mean, I understand why they have it in there, but I think given for health and safety issues of residents, I'm comfortable that we should remove that, even though it'll be tough sleeping some nights.
And it'll be more work with, you know, that 75, and we'll have to send them out there, and we'll pay them overtime to make sure, because they're out there when it's dark and there's the storms come usually at night. So we will be having somebody out there to monitor that on all the calls that we get. Calls you get, calls I get, everybody on council. So we will send them all out. So with that, stay right there. Don't get too excited. Step back a little bit. Anybody from council chambers that have a voice on this? Again, public comment. This isn't a Q&A. Public comment, full name and address. You have your full 2 minutes. Let her rip.
All right, Lenore Lewandowski, 119 Randolph Street. And Councilwoman Barbara Moscow knows that I was at a lot of those planning commission meetings. So there's a few things that she said that I would just like to reiterate that are really important. Again, the stated DBA that manufacturers said is not always verified. So, you know, a person can purchase something and they think they're compliant and they're not. That's why I really would like to see testing done. That we need to do that. I'm not sure what you do if a person is not compliant. I get that they've spent a lot of money on this purchase, but there's got to be a better solution. Also, in terms of the placement, you were talking about, well, you know, maybe they can't put it in their backyard because their deck is in the way. Well, if you look at the BZA, when people go to get an appeal, part of the process is this something that the residents created? Is this a hardship that they created? So yeah, I want my nice back porch and my deck, but I can't put my generator there because, you know, unless I change my back deck, so I'll put it someplace else. Kind of the hardship they created because it's their porch. So I think we need to be really careful about where we place, you know, about placement. And I also think that sound level needs to be at 75. And the last thing has to do with the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I know at the Planning Commission, there was, I think I actually mentioned it, if people do have a medical condition, they could apply for a, not a variance, but, you know, hardship appeal, something. But what I'm concerned about is the people who just say, well, the power's out and I want to be able to charge all my devices. You know, it's not a medical issue. I'm going to run my generator, my noisy generator, because I want to charge all my devices or my kids' devices. Medical issue, yeah, that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenore. Anybody? Steve Kirk, are you up? Super.
Good evening, Steve Kirk, 502 Ville. I am on the Planning Commission. First off, thank you for your inputs and your efforts on this ordinance. Enforcement is difficult. Without a doubt, enforcement was one of our most concerned aspects because we have numerous ordinances out there now that are very, very difficult to enforce. However, if you don't have them, and it's a prime example, your church, United Methodist Church, had a loud
air conditioning unit on the roof.
And the gentleman behind him worked for an automotive company, had the test equipment, and was able to say, this is too loud. Well, the ordinance was there, but no one was able to check it. The church went over and above to reduce that sound. But if it wasn't for the resident, we never would have reduced it. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted the higher restrictions is that it's very, very difficult to lower them once you have them set. Other items was portable generators. You don't need a permit for a portable. So if they're allowed portables, they're going to be loud. And so I'm glad you just are talking about having a quieter portable generator because there's no permit for those. You just bring them out. And I know mine is way above 85.
I've noticed that down.
It is. It is. I need to take that back. Either way, most people who have medical needs will have a permanent generators. And as for being close to their patios, most storms I've seen where the generator's on because of storms, people are not sitting out in their patios. So again, that's our comments. It was a very difficult ordinance to create. It's very difficult to set low limits and bring them up. So I encourage you to be conservative.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in council chambers? Going once, going twice? Okay, I'm closing off comments on council chambers. Anybody online with their hand up at this point?
There is, Mr. Mayor.
Great.
If I could just take a second, I wanted to make you and council familiar with the display of what this is going to look like going forward. So if you look to the right, the white column there, you'll see the phone number along with a raised hand, along with a red icon indicating that they're muted. So whenever we get callers that come in, they will populate that column.
And there's a whole host of them behind that. This is the one with the hand up. Okay.
This is just the call. You actually have.
I got you.
Yeah.
13 online?
30.
Oh,
30 online. So everybody's listening to this tonight. So you're going to say the last of their phone number, 97.
With your hand raised with the last four digits of 9723, please press *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. There you go. And state your name and address and proceed with your comment.
My name is Donna Tinberg and I reside at 736 Thayer Boulevard. As chair of the Planning Commission and a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals, I understand many of the changes that are being proposed tonight, but I'm concerned that the current revision throws the baby out with the bathwater. The Planning Commission undertook this rewrite at my request because after reviewing just 4 variance requests over a year or more, the BZA had found that the language in 18.24 was insufficient to make objective database decisions about generator location. It was not primarily about relief from the number of requests. Our recommended vision was crafted to remedy that issue. Face it, we wouldn't be talking about generators if they sat there and quietly did their job. We only care about them because they're noisy, and the impact of that noise on neighbors is largely a function of the generator's location. Our current ordinance relies solely on dimensional measurements to determine the generator's location. The recommendation we sent to you was designed to provide another tool, sound measurement, to determine an appropriate location, especially in the event of a variance. Human beings can be inherently selfish. We want to move unpleasantness as far away from ourselves as possible. But this newly proposed language encourages that behavior, not just by eliminating sound measurement as a tool, but also by gutting the dimensional protections that have long been part of our ordinance, instead allowing a generator to be placed a mere 5 feet from the property line. Worse, and as yet unmentioned, the current iteration moves the placement decision to a city official who can make this decision unilaterally in the privacy of his or her office without any opportunity for input from affected neighbors. That's not the way our community operates. At a minimum, I encourage City Council to reinstate the sound measurement requirement post-installation, maintain the 75 dBA threshold, and prohibit the location of a generator in the front yard or required side or rear yard setbacks, providing justice for both the property owner and neighbors. I would also volunteer to work on a conference committee to assist with crafting a consensus version of the ordinance before you take action. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Donna. Anybody else online?
No one at this time, Mr. Mayor.
So going once, going twice, I'm closing off public comment online. So again, I think you've handled a little bit of Donna's going from the 85 to 75. I do agree with that. And we have a few in our neighborhood that I understand what she's talking about there too. And she was just, you're going to craft where we're going. So we've heard comments up here. Don't go anyplace yet. You got a couple after this. Is there anything we want to discuss before
I still feel.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I mean, I think right now it sounds like we're aligned on the 75. I think that's the right answer. I agree
fine with that.
with the variance, but I always, in terms of the timing that they could apply, but I think that's a tough line to walk when you have people that are dealing with medical issues. So the timing, I am still comfortable with the 11 to 7. To me, the sound measurement is something I still think is important. And I want to make sure we've got the tools in place, we have a process in place. And then I think the biggest question that we have that is still open in my mind based on the comments is distance from the lot lines and distance from the principal location. So I'm not ready at this point to vote on those. I'd like to hear where everyone is at in terms of their view of that, because I think we need to have an open conversation of what we think is appropriate.
And by everyone, you mean planning commission?
No, I was actually
No,
thinking this group
just us.
before we vote.
We've got
on
the
that.
recommendation from Planning Commission. Tell us your viewpoint again. Enlighten us again on the timing, on the distance. I know we've all read them. We read them again.
I mean,
Tell us what you read and what your recommendation is. again.
I'm happy to draft whatever council deems is
What it is right now.
So, I think if you want to give some flexibility within 8 feet of the house, I would maybe recommend going to 12 feet because that, a very small deck or patio oftentimes projects 4 feet off.
Not even go a little further, maybe 15 or
Well, I would
20?
say,
You would want it closer to the house, right?
Yeah, but I'm
He's talking about
saying if it's
proximity to the
8,
house.
should it be like 12 or 15? I don't know what it should be, but something versus the Wild West.
Right. I think 12 would be appropriate.
Okay.
15 would also be appropriate. In terms of the setback from the lot line, it's really, in my opinion, it's the current ordinance, which is they have to meet the current setback.
Right.
It's 5 feet. There really isn't anything in between that. So it's.
And we're not changing that.
Well, if
Current one.
I don't like the 5, I'm going from 25 to 5 is wild. I would prefer if it wasn't in the setback, just say it can't be in the setback. But if we're going to reinstate the sound measurement, it isn't like pick up your generator and go home, like waste of money, because there's sound attenuating things that they can do, right?
Yes.
If it turns out. So I'm not happy about the 5 feet, but if we put in the sound testing, and then I would be comfortable with it. But the 8 feet,
Well, the reason my recommendation was 12 feet because a typical rear yard has a 25-foot setback and 12 feet's just less than half of
Okay.
that.
so 12, I just was saying, does 12 make sense?
You thought this out.
Okay, all right, so 12 for so the 8 would be 12.
12 seems like an amount I could get comfortable with.
Yeah, and it's 85 to 75. And how about,
I had, from notes I was taking while you were talking, 75 for both portable and the permanent.
Yes.
is that,
Yes.
yeah, because at first I think it was
Right.
just portable. And what about, not removing because we have as measured in there, but actually measuring it. I heard it from you. That's where I'd like to see that added back in where you have to measure the sound.
Well, I think if we keep the current language in there that talks about as measured 6 feet above ground level at the property line without the sound testing, that gives us the ability that if we have to go do a sound test in a good location of where we would do that. So it makes it clear that while there isn't a post-installation requirement, if there is a need to go out and measure, it's clear in the ordinance where that measurement would be taken.
I still don't. I
The
still,
lot line 6 feet up, right?
correct. So I'm not.
They have a pole
Are we
6
the
feet up
only
with
that
the
want the
monitor on it.
So are John and I the only two that want the sound?
Well, I have a few follow-up comments here. So, good discussion. Still, I think we need to remove the time restriction on the generators. They're not permitted, and I'm not looking for people with health problems to come into City Hall and proclaim it and declare it. I don't think that's appropriate. I do understand the comment, though. I think one of the failure modes that we have with the proximity to the house is somebody's going to put that generator right on the backyard lot line, maybe even behind the garage. So I think it's appropriate to put it within 10 to 12 feet of the home because, as was noted, and it's correct, human nature would be to push it as far away from the house. I'm not, the comment regarding decks, 98% of decks are already there. So it's we have to work with what's there. I'm not going to ask somebody to tear down a deck for this. I mean, life's choices, but if we give them within 12 feet and we have sound check, then that addresses the problem. And then beyond that starts to sound punitive to me. And so again, it's like, the issue is not going to be as much with the permanent generators, because as was noted on the phone, they get loud, but most of these generators are over 10 years old and are done with technologies that are borderline ancient.
Right.
New technologies are going to be 10 to 15 decibels at least quieter. The ones that are going to go in now are not going to be the problem. So then the question, Justin, to you becomes, if we do have a complaint, what would we do? Would we require, if we move to a 75 on a permanent home generator and there's a neighbor that's complaining about something that's been in place and approved for 10 to 15 years, what do we do with something that would otherwise be grandfathered in? Because those will be the problems, not the new ones.
They would technically be what's considered non-conforming, and what under our ordinance, non-conforming structures and uses are allowed to continue until they're
Yeah, but not the new
no
ones.
longer.
So they're going to be up. So, yeah, so the sound check,
Handles that.
I'm all for the sound check, but I want everybody to prepare to be ready that the issue is not going to be the new generators. It's going to be the 10 and 15-year-old generators. So if we're thinking it's going to get quiet overnight, it will not.
That is correct.
But I do support it. Support the check. I'm very leery about asking somebody who spends thousands of dollars thinking they're doing it right, does a review, and then they're off by 3 decibels. Now, I know we would have to go back, look in screening and everything else, but that day is going to come. And we'll just have to address it when we get there.
Can we build in a deviation?
Oh, you're just changing the number, basically.
Like I said, but most of these permanent generators run at 65 dBs and
Right. They do.
so I don't see that's ever going to be a source. With respect to the setback, I'm not as comfortable with deviating the side yard setback. So this is a philosophical discussion we have where should everybody have a right to get a generator? Or would we prescribe a solution where somebody theoretically gets like a Tesla Powerwall in their garage, which is another technical solution that's silent. So if the board here wanted to not invade or encroach on the side yard setback, there is technology. It is 3 times more expensive, so it is punitive. But like Ms. Tinberg said, there was 4 cases in the last year or so. I could take a look at 7. I could take a look at 5. If we're doing that discussion, it's going to be more a matter of a site plan violation and not a noise violation for a permanent generator, in my view. So if we have screening and bushes and everybody can live with that, I guess I can get on board. I mean, I think that's really about it. I think that's
And
where
on
I'm
the
at.
side yard, it goes to policies and procedures and side yard setbacks versus where the lot line is today. So doesn't that handle a lot of that when we go to the 12 feet in the back? Explain that intellectually for everybody.
If that is the direction that council would like to go, then that provision of the current ordinance would remain, that generators would then have to meet the side yard setback requirement. That's something that's in, I should say, the current ordinance, not the version that was proposed by the planning commission with the 25.
Right, I understand. So for mine, do you have more? What I've heard, just so my opinion, I am open for and would be supportive of the 12 feet. I am supportive to go from the 85 down to the 75. And we will have our ordinance manager out there on as needed basis when we have those complaints. But to your point, and we know this, we cannot, on the older ones, they're non-conforming as it is. So
Right,
this is
that's
not
what I was
going to happen.
Yeah.
This 6 months, a year, as the years go on, it's going to get quieter and quieter. It'll be the quietest down at the Downs development. It'll be the quietest in the new area because they have all new generators, if they're putting generators
But we
in.
still have to have an ordinance.
Yeah, that is correct. So I'm
But-
fully supportive of the 2 major things, the 12 feet. I'm fully supportive of 80, going from the 85 down to 75. I know you had that on there, but you're not living and breathing that. You're still going to
How
come to
about
work
the
tomorrow if we
mayor,
change
how about
that.
Time restriction overnight.
So I don't think there should be any restrictions on the overnight. I just don't. I just don't see how we can enforce that. Why are they on? Because there's no power. Some people have heat, on electric. Some people have, air conditioning. Some people have light. Why is it at night there's no light on? So you need that. You need heat. You need oxygen. It's not for the power sources to get your iPads and your phones and what have you. It's sustainability. So I don't see how we can restrict the hours of this. I just don't see that.
Well, and it's one of those things, we remove it if, if, if Frank's getting a lot of calls.
Right.
You know, if there's problems with something, then we can readdress that.
Right.
That, well, maybe we shouldn't have taken it.
As we
out.
said,
We
we're
can
gonna
add
be
it back in.
flexible. This is not the last one in our lifetime. It needed to be redone because the technology has gone 3-4-fold since this ordinance came into place. And we're just talking about the unit. A lot of these will be sheltered by sound deadening materials and encompass and, you know, with a cocoon around it. You won't be hearing as much. And a portion, maybe 20 or 25% will be electric. Not going to happen today, but with the new builds around here, it'll get quieter in the new neighborhoods and ours will get quieter long term. So yeah, those are the three things that I'm into. Other discussion anybody wants?
I'm okay with that.
Well, what are we doing? Because right now, I believe it's under A3 is applicants' adherence to the required acoustic performance and screening standards. And then where is the part about, I've got so many scribbles on here, I can't find it, in terms of removing that sound check. Where is that in the, I'm just looking for where it is.
That's in subsection B2.
It's
Okay.
B2?
Okay.
Oh, I see it. So, permit inspection approval is contingent upon DBA sound test conducted by, does it have to be you? Are you stuck doing it?
Well, it'd be somebody on staff. We have a part.
The sound staff.
Officers.
With a permit
staff.
holder and a community representative present. And it says, and then note inverter type generator shall be tested at full load. I would like to leave that language in, the testing. So what I'm seeing is we seem to have agreement under A2, if I want to summarize, because I might have.
Yep.
Under A2, that would change to, is that one also change?
Jump in, Andrew, you were.
Yeah,
That's 12
right?
feet, that's
12.
12.
That's the
12 feet.
proximity to
That's
the
a
house.
12, and then it would also be a 12, is it also a 12 for item 3? If you see in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line?
This is the side yard setback of 5 feet.
So A2 would be rewritten to cover the rear yard installation only, which would be within 12 feet of the house. Then A3 would become your regulation for the side yards, which are going to be within 12 feet of the house, and they have to meet the side yard setback requirement.
Okay, well,
That's what I gathered from.
okay, so we're getting rid of, so the 5 feet, the 25 feet went, the 5 feet went, and now we're back to side yard setback.
So we went rigorously from 7
Okay.
to 25.
Right, we did.
5.
And I'm sorry, but it's like, where is it in here and what are we doing?
I
Now we're
understand
back
that we would be returning to the currently adopted ordinance, which is the generators meet the side yard setback.
I think that's the best
Good.
fairness. for
And
the
I think it's
adjacent-
fair if we provide 4 extra feet for proximity to the home.
Yeah,
I don't
on
want
the
to be
rear.
punitive on our neighbors here. So if we give them the 4 extra feet, maintain the side yard setback, maybe they can find a way in the backyard without tearing into existing hardscape and decks. And I think let's try it. Let's see what we
And
get.
if you're getting feedback that, oh, if it was 14 or 15, they had more options, then we can change it,
Yep.
right? But
We will look, as we said,
Yeah.
I believe this is flex. We've stayed away from this for many, many years, decades. This is time to look at it. And Planning Commission again did an outstanding, we couldn't be here today with all that 7 months of work. Yes, we tweaked it. We made it just a little bit easier, but we hear you. We hear you, Steve and Donna and others. It was an outstanding recommendation and all that work was done to get us to this level and all the research you did. I know you just mentioned a couple in there, but you called about every municipality and we gave you all the names of them, but we appreciate that. John, anything to add before I go forward? And one of you two, you've been doing copious notes.
Mayor Pro Tem, were you finished with your comments?
I think we all agreed. The only thing I didn't mention, because I keep forgetting, is removing that time, removing the time restriction.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, but we're leaving the time restriction in for when they do the necessary generator testing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
I've just made notes of the sections that we discussed to change, and that other one for portable generators at night will stay as is with
Right.
that time limit removed.
Oh,
Correct.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
No,
Are you comfortable?
So should we, I mean, this is a lot of different changes. Should we deal with it next time? Like,
Nope, I'm open to
okay,
do a
we
roll
have to
call vote on
make
it.
Sure we hit
I think we're
everyone.
pretty, I think we talked it out. I'm not
Well, no.
trying to push it through.
No, I'm not
Yep.
doing, no, and I'm not pushing it. I think we have reached
Yep.
consensus.
Right, we have.
Now we have to, the rubber hits the road that we have
Are
to
you
edit the.
comfortable with it?
I will try, but I'll look for a little dispensation from
And
the
you stay
court
close to this.
elegance.
Yep.
The only thing, Councilmember Krenz, before you speak, I think we have reached consensus. I'm supportive of where we've come. I also want to recognize, Justin, that I know you've received a lot of feedback. We went from
Give you a group hug in a minute.
one side to, basically pulling it back towards the middle here. So I do appreciate how you've pulled this together. And I think this group's done the right thing in terms of challenging where appropriate and pulling it back to what I think is a better place in the end. So just wanted to highlight
Good.
that.
Thank you. He feels much better now.
Now I'll let Councilmember Krenz do the hard work.
Go right
Wish
ahead.
me luck, everybody on the phone and in the room. We're going to try this. Okay. I move to approve the second reading and adopt an amendment to Article 18, Section 24 of the zoning ordinance to establish updated standards for air conditioning, condensers, heat pumps, and emergency electrical generators to be effective at the earliest permissible date applicable by law with the following updates. Let's go. And I'm not going to map them right to where they are in here.
Right.
I assume you're going to know.
Yep, and it's on, it's being recorded.
Yep. Remove the time restriction on temporary generators that was originally from 11 PM to 7 AM. Maintain the rear yard setback of originally 7 feet.
Side yard setback.
I'm sorry,
Side
side
yard.
yard. I knew I was going to get it wrong. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
Side yard back of 7 feet.
What?
Friendly
amendment.
75 decibel requirement to be measured at the lot line in the standard location of lot line plus 6 feet. Let's see, fixed generators to be moved from within 8 feet of the home to 12 feet. And, okay, I think that was it. Weren't those the big ones? Did I miss
Are
anything?
you comfortable with that?
The only thing related to the side yard setback, you mentioned 7. We don't need to put it in because the side yard setback.
Or maintain, shall not violate
Maintain.
side.
Just
Right.
maintain.
because
Yeah,
it-
because it's 7 or 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it varies, yes.
I accept the friendly amendment.
You concur with that?
Does that make, did we cover everything? Because there's lots of little stuff.
And,
in-
and you wanted to maintain the post-inspection sound test as well.
Yes,
Yes.
maintain as written
Good.
beforehand.
So we have a motion. I believe it's correct. It's recorded here tonight. Do I have support for that motion?
Support.
So I have a motion, properly support. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote on this one.
Carter,
Yes.
Janetti,
Yes.
Krenz,
Yes.
Morosky Brown,
Yes.
Turnbull,
Yes, good. I guess we didn't have to do that, but we're doing that.
And
I'm
let's just
sorry,
see how this
Steve,
goes
we
and
got close.
let's see.
Well, that's what I was talking
Yep.
about, having.
Talk to Justin.
2 dB can be handled by screening or screening.
Correct. Yep. So
Yeah.
talk to Justin on that. That was Steve Kirk. I'm always interested in his input, but not at that moment in time. He will work with you. This is.
Thanks for nothing, Steve.
This is
We're worried.
the Justin Show. So now we're finally to new business, for goodness sake. So this is consideration of approving the first reading introduction of the amendment to Chapter 78, Article Code of Ordinances, lot splits via the state statute. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure, and I apologize, you have to see me and hear from me so
No,
much
we like
tonight,
it.
But, so
We'll give
this,
you a hug later.
this is a recommendation that's coming from the assessor and myself. The current land division or lot split ordinance, the city last updated it in 1980. One section was updated in 1995. The current ordinance is actually inconsistent with state law, which requires that land divisions be reviewed and approved by an assessor or another municipally designated official, such as the zoning.
We're 45 years old in our.
So that the old or the current land division ordinance is based on the Michigan Subdivision Control Act, which was repealed and replaced with the Michigan Land Division Act in 1997. And so our current ordinance does not reflect the update to state law. And so in your packet tonight, you'll see a red line version that makes the change of requiring lot splits to go to the planning commission for approval to be reviewed and approved by the assessor and the zoning administrator. It would maintain or allow either the assessor or zoning administrator to refer a lot split application to the planning commission for additional review or comment if either the assessor or zoning administrator thought that was necessary, such as a complex case. But in other words, it would just, like I said, bring our ordinance into compliance with the state statute.
We like compliance.
So Justin, could you maybe elaborate a little further? Because I think we're getting smarter on this as the day progresses. So with that state law, I got smarter on that. I was on planning for almost 3 years. And I don't know if I ever actually knew that aspect of it and assumed that all lot splits in the community went through planning commission, which seems like that was not the case.
Majority of them do not go through the planning commission. The ordinance currently has a series of exemptions for lot splits that don't require planning commission approval. And a majority of those that the city gets are exempt splits. For example, if someone's doing what's called a split in combination, where you're not creating a new parcel, you're just doing a boundary line adjustment, that doesn't go to the planning commission. Or if there's a lot split that's for a municipal or public purpose, that wouldn't go to the planning commission. The city doesn't get many applications in general, and I've been here just over a year and we've only had one, and it was an exempt split, so it didn't go to the planning commission.
So this is not driven by burden on you or planning commission or anything else. This is alignment with state law
That's correct.
through the assessor. Can you just detail for everybody a little bit, put on the record of when that would bump over to planning commission?
So it would be at the discretion
If
of,
we were fully aligned with state law, sorry.
so if the either zoning administrator or assessor thought that there was a questionable lot split or something maybe wasn't compliant from a zoning standpoint, it could be referred to the planning commission. The ordinance has a set of standards that are required to be reviewed in order to determine if a lot split is permissible, and that would just be a function of staff.
So then my follow-up question, and then I'll turn it back over, is why did we just discover this now?
I can't speak to the,
Or what
Because we have a new planner, you're going through every ordinance, okay?
triggered you to, like, how did you discover this and know that we are out of compliance with state laws we are currently?
so our assessor and I, we've reviewed this ordinance. We actually have a newer assessor. He started around the same time I did. And as we've been reviewing our ordinances, this is one that we've uncovered that really needs to be changed to become consistent with state law. We have had a couple of lot split applications that we've actually said, we want to wait and see if we can get this ordinance amended before you come in. And like I said, the one that we've had come in the year that I've been here, it has been an exempt split.
Okay, and then the last question, I promise, is, so if we look at every lot split that's happened, let's say since 1980 on this and how they've gone through planning, is that an acceptable process? Are those all valid, clean splits at this point? Or is there something that needs remediation on that?
They're all still valid because ultimately it's the assessor who creates the tax roll. So new parcels have to go on the tax roll. They get assigned a property ID number for tax purposes. They get entered into our system. That's solely a function of the assessor. And so any action that the planning commission may have taken on a lot split has ultimately been affirmed or confirmed by the assessor.
So they were doing it anyway.
He was doing it anyway.
Okay. All right. That's
So the state law supersedes the ordinance.
Our current ordinance isn't consistent with it. So technically, yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
So so I'm going to ask some more questions because the way it was written is sort of like we found a problem. It was a serious problem, very serious problem, that things were being approved not according to ordinance. And this is real property. So that's a problem because it has to be recorded and it wasn't properly approved. And it's like our solution is to, the way it was written, it was sort of like, well, our solution is to codify improper behavior, essentially. But what you're saying is something different. You're saying that we have a state law, and actually somebody must have, knowing the state law, must have, there's a lot needs work, but there's a lot split combination information page, for residents, which I'm sure you're familiar with. I can see that we'll have your hand in it in a while in terms of improving it, but that was very clear upfront to the person doing the property owner that like it must begin with the city assessor. And then it's the building department. And then in fact, there's an administrative review application because before it could, the way our current process was supposed to work, before it ever went to planning, it had to go through the assessor and the building department at that time. Now it would be you, you're the zoning administrator, correct? So what I'm hearing now is that the law says they must play a more prominent role, but I don't think the law says that the planning commission is not to have a role.
It specifically
What is
says,
it? Yeah, help me, because it was none of that.
so the state law specifically says that lot splits or land divisions have to be approved by the municipal assessor or another municipally designated official, which could be a zoning administrator. It does not have a provision that allows that authority to be deferred or transferred to a board or a commission
At all.
At all.
Yeah, and what would be good that will just that get that is that afterwards, just send that to me, because I know that if you look in the code of ordinances, it does refer to two laws, and I wasn't see that the way we had it set up, it wasn't clear that it was out of process, particularly since the administrative review application emphasized that couldn't go to planning unless the city assessor and the zoning administrator had looked
And
at
I think
that.
something I could have clarified in my memo is that majority of the splits that are approved are exempt splits. So there's only the handful that don't fall under an exemption that go to the planning commission.
Yeah, because I could only think of one lot split was a series of a couple lot splits, but those had to do with access to the property, which I think that would still have to, so they didn't have driveways. And so it was like, okay, how are you gonna split this lot? And there's no access to a public street. And then another had a couple other issues, but there were only three, at least within the past 7, 8 years, that came to planning.
Sure.
That doesn't mean others weren't seen by the city.
Right.
But, so this is very different. So, I'm like, this is, what a problem, right? But without any of that background, related to, having it now align with state law, right? Which is
Yep.
what you're trying
That's
to
what we
do.
want.
I would
These are-
personally, I think it's really good to have lot splits go to the planning commission, because it's in the public and it's open. So it's with the consideration of the master plan or something that they're doing on the property or whatever. So it's a good thing, but you're saying the state law
Right.
just doesn't.
Doesn't. And another example of that would be, if a municipality, referred building permits to a board or a commission, if somebody meets a set of standards that are outlined in the state law or the building code,
Mhm.
the ordinances or state law says that those should be approved administratively.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with what you're saying, but it's just, there's not a provision.
Yeah, and like I said, in the background in the packet, we had nothing on that, right? It was like, oops, problem, let's codify it, which is different than what, you're describing to us now. That was the impetus for this. So I really appreciate that. I would like, after like sometime this week, send me that information so I can just take a peek, because I just like getting it in my head. And also hearing a little bit from others about the way this was written, that I have that information to share as follow-up of the why, which seems like a good basis to me.
Spend some
So,
quality time.
Does that make,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
so,
Indeed.
no quality time, it's just.
Oh,
Where-
time just to go over that, make sure you get all the
Need to go
information.
into it, it's just, okay, where is it? Both of the laws are fairly dense, so it's like where, so.
I pulled it already, so I'm happy to send that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, that perfect thing. I would think.
But tomorrow morning I can see it.
So
Any others?
so.
This feels pretty cut and dry at this stage. We can
Mm-hmm.
maintain an ordinance that
Yep.
isn't in line with state law and can't be enforced,
A good
or
thing.
we align to what the state law is and begin enforcing accordingly.
We thank you for going.
Could I just make
Go
one
right
quick
ahead, please.
clarification? So the Mayor Pro Tem asked, and then it seems a little inconsistent, but I wanted just to clarify because it really isn't, is that the staff can have it go to planning commission, but at the end of the day, coming back from them is only a recommendation. It still sits with this fact assessor that makes the final determination, even if it went to planning.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
That-
As- So it's more for advisory because you want to hear what the planning commission says, and then staff still has to make that determination once hearing from the planning commission.
Yeah, and from the, just from that, that PDF information that we have, which you'll improve, is that it was very clear in there that this had to pass the assessors, look at it. So that was what I read from this in terms of the way it was being done. So.
Good. John, anything? Straight? Nothing more. Anything over here? Great.
Got my answer.
Stay right there. Anybody from the gallery here? Steve, please. You have all the time as long as you use 2 minutes. That's great. You bet. This is your time.
Thank you.
You bet.
Again, Steve Kirk, 502 Beale. Two properties I can remember, Dr. Groves and the property on Maplewood.
Right.
And both of those properties were administratively approved. However, they came back to the Planning Commission numerous times. In fact, Dr. Prost came back 3 times. So nothing against our administration at that time, but our administration at that time was not residents of Northville. And if we're saying, okay, we can just approve this because 3 + 3 = 6, I'm sorry, I would be very cautious on that aspect. If the lot splits that we had discussed in the Planning Commission were so simple, why did it come back to us numerous times? Because different commissioners brought up different things. They said this needs to be corrected. One issue was the water flow for Dr. Prost. That was a major issue for not only the resident directly south, but also of the water going into the park. No, that would on paper it looks fine. However, if you're a resident, you knew that area flooded, and so there had to be some items corrected so that the water wasn't a problem. So that's my point. Is if everything was black and white, we have no problem. But clearly, we've seen issues where it requires them to come back.
Right.
Thank you.
Even though this is public comment, I agree with Steve, being in Northvillian for about 5 generations from the family. I know exactly those two, and those would be ones that I would consider would go back for consideration. So when we're looking at exceptions, absolutely those two. We know that Dubar and Rogers, absolutely that would go back, in my opinion, but that would be
what would trigger
the review, and we'd probably look at some, but
That would be.
yep,
No, but
good.
what could trigger, because there are sensitive sites, and I remember.
Maybe we let rest of public
Yep,
comment.
yep, I got it. I just want,
Sorry.
I know I jumped in. I know I say it's public comments, but
I already have my
But I cut
questions
Steve
queued up for
off. Yep,
Justin
great.
pending the
Soup.
completion of public
so
comment.
hang on for a second. Is there anybody else in the gallery here going once, going twice? Anybody online?
There are no callers online at
Okay,
this
so
time, Mr. Mayor.
I'm closing off public comment. Yes. it's all
Justin, one
yours.
follow-up clarifying question. So in what's changed from, let's say, when we had to handle the property at the end of Dubois, which is absolutely the best example we can come up with. If I look at what's different now and what the triggering mechanism would be to bring that forward to planning with respect to grading, water management, driveway access. I believe one driveway at one time was going to go into the township. There was a right of way there that we couldn't manage well. It was all the things all together at one time and was multiple sessions. My expectation is the person who's going to identify that is the new role that we have, whose job it is to identify that, and that's you. And that it would be through you, you would say, look, based on what I understand of what the lot split would be, this is something we would probably want to refer to planning to confirm that we can do all the things that we're supposed to do. We did not have that role in the past. That's my, because Mr. Kirk's got a great point here, but what I see is different is that you're here, and to me, that's your job. Is that fair?
That's correct. And another example more recently within the last 5 years are the lot splits that the Planning Commission approved up by Hillside Middle School for that
The condo.
Right.
That's a good one too.
That'd be one that could,
Well, that went
that'd
to
be a unique one to you.
2 lot split.
It did because it went through a lot split under this ordinance, but there is a separate ordinance for condominium lot
Zoning
split
change, right?
Right.
and zoning changes.
Yep.
And so, that is something that I would refer to the planning.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that would be mayor and
Yeah,
so that's
so-
how I would address it.
so this
He was
doesn't-
supposed to be that person.
So this doesn't call out, when is it referred to the planning commission? It's silent on that. So if I read the ordinance, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but if I read the change,
It
what
is
would
at the-
trigger it going to planning?
It's really at the discretion of staff.
Yeah, which you and obviously the planning commission have a good relationship. So you know,
I
you're,
think you could keep in mind that there's actually, we go above and beyond in this ordinance there's two staff that are required. It's not just the assessor, it's the assessor
good.
and zoning administrator. So there's two sets of eyes on every lot split. And either one of those individuals could refer to the planning.
Which are full-time Norfolk employees versus the old.
Which
one
one
of
does not
that-
have?
Well, I know, two knew that this is the main deal.
It's
Assessor,
I'm
yeah,
contracted.
yeah.
well, for me, I'm just gonna say, keep an eye out, Justin, and lean on the planning commission as needed, but
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to err in going to the planning commission unless you think it's just a simple, it's on a street, there's a lot, we're splitting it in two, but there one or three, whatever it is, if it's a large lot. I really think having that, it's apparent to the public what's trying. So if public wants to have input, if there's discussion, how does this fit in or something with the master plan or that sub area, your district, zoning area. So I would hope that if anything comes up that it's like, that your preference would be to run it by planning, even if it's just for their review and recommendation. So you're getting feedback. So then you don't take the heat.
Sure.
And you agree, everyone we thought in our minds, which are exceptions, absolutely, they would have gone to planning commission. So we're not changing
I'm not
really.
sure.
Well, the five, we just, kind of went in my mind, but I trust you. I appreciate you looking at that. Anything else?
I'm gonna say he is the person who is supposed to be the expert on these matters. So I'm going to be relying and put great deference into his judgment on this and go from there.
And I appreciate, so Justin, just a little commercial. He doesn't live here in Northville, but he walks the town almost every day. He's driving around every house. He probably knows more about the homes and the subdivisions and the 4 historic burgs than just about any other Northvillian. So, and he gets the magical mystery tour for me once in a while, what he doesn't know. So it is great. I appreciate that because he's involved each and every day and he's walking around. So that is somebody that Steve and I, we're getting old. I used to be the youngest room. Now I'm the oldest. We know what we're talking about sometime, but we're pushing it over to everybody and everybody here knows those too. That is the future. And he learns more and more every day. And I think he's about 99% of me, maybe 102% of me.
We'll certainly err on the side of caution.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to go forward. Go ahead.
This one's easier. I move to approve the first reading of an amendment to Chapter 78, Article 3 of the Code of Ordinances to follow administrative approval of lot splits by the assessor and zoning administrator with the second reading and adoption scheduled for June 16th, 2025.
So we have a motion. I'm looking support of that motion. We have support. Any other discussion? I think you can go forward with this. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great. We
I'll
have
look
that.
forward to getting the state law on that.
So we have one more. Stay right there. You're still on, Justin. So 9B is consideration of request by Toll Brothers in the Downs development for agreement. They're doing more complying lots and I believe some easement activities for underground wiring. Tell us a little bit about that, the different lot.
Sure. And
locations.
just for clarification purposes, the lots that we're talking about with this project don't fall under the lot split ordinance that you just discussed. They're two separate ordinances.
Yep.
These lots were created under the Condominium Act with a master deed that was recorded at the county. So
Okay.
two separate
You
ordinances.
didn't bring that big visual up there that they showed us? No.
I don't have that.
Okay.
Okay. It's in the packet.
No problem. No, we got it. We can read.
That's fine. So Toll Brothers is requesting an amendment to the development agreement specific to a provision that relates to phases 2 and 3 with the detached single-family portion of the project. And there's 38 detached single-family units that were approved over an area of approximately 5.5 acres. And so that area of land is not changing. That number of units is not changing. What's being proposed is to adjust some of the lot lines between certain units to accommodate utilities. Now, why is that? So after the development agreement and final site plan were approved, final engineering plan was approved. So when they were going through that review and approval process at site plan, they had essentially demonstrated from a feasibility standpoint that the utilities would be sufficient to serve the project, but the final design wasn't done until final engineering plan review. after those two had already been approved. And when their engineer was reviewing it and our engineer was reviewing their submittals, it was determined that there's some topography issues out there with the way the grade changes, north to south or south to north. And some of these lot lines need to shift about 2.5 feet to accommodate putting the utility in the center of a utility easement. So the utility easements have already all been recorded. So they're established. And the units themselves get established through a master deed, which is again recorded at the county. And the master deed shows where each of these 38 units are in the project. So those aren't changing. The footprints of these units aren't changing. Additionally, the architecture that was approved by the Planning Commission for all of these different units. And if you recall, there's approximately 24 different single-family detached housing types that can go among these 38 units. And so by making these shifts, we can still accommodate the architecture of all those units. On your screen is an exhibit that's in your packet that shows, some red lines that are.
Oh, yes, you have it up.
The easement lines that are or the lot lines that are shifting within the easements. And so why it's before you tonight, if this was not a development agreement, nobody would have seen this other than the city planner and the city engineer would have reviewed it and approved this administratively. But because there's a development agreement that specifies where these 38 units are, some of them have deviations for lot area and lot width, smaller than what the zoning ordinance would normally allow. 20 in the current development agreement were given a deviation. This amendment actually reduces the deviation because there's 4 lots that are going to come into compliance with zoning standards. So instead of 20 deviating lots, it's 16. So I think from a zoning standpoint, it's more compliant, it's beneficial from that standpoint. And again, this is really a paper change. If you're standing on site, you're not going to see any physical changes. This is really a change on paper. And then the development agreement lays out the process for these amendments. They come to city council. If you approve this amendment, then staff will complete the administrative site plan approval. The development agreement requires a notification to the planning commission, and that's why they're not seeing this before you, because minor changes can be approved administratively with notification to the planning commission. So a major change goes to the planning commission first, similar to what Hunter Pasteur. That's a major change.
What defines a minor versus major change? Because I know there's more coming, and that could become a very nuanced discussion that could have large implications in the future.
So section 4.18 of the development agreement defines what minor changes are. There's a list and there's about 10 or 12 of them. And so if a change does not fall into one of those categories, it's automatically a major change. And this is a change that falls under the category of no impact to final engineering plan approval. So there is not a need to trigger that major change level.
Yeah. But the trigger is the development agreement had this specificity in it. So
correct.
That's
because the development agreement has a section, and it's section 3.2 subsection A 7A, lists the 20 units that have a deviation. That section needs to change to list the 16 units that are going to have a deviation. And only city council can approve an amendment to the development agreement, not staff, not the planning commission. So the document that's in your packet, if you're inclined to move this ahead tonight, would be approving the amendment. Staff would make the change and sign off on the agreement, approve the administrative site plan change, and notify the planning commission.
Great.
And there is a representative from Toll Brothers here tonight, Jason Michelangeli, if you have any questions for him.
Jason's excited to be here.
We probably don't need you unless we have wild and exciting questions.
And I would say, because the average reduces the average lot width to 53 feet, but they can still build the house. It's going to be necessarily tighter, and I'm looking at this and I'm approving this. It's just trying to understand. I mean, I will vote to approve. Is the easements, is the distance from the house change, or is it because there's now an easement that the lot size change? You know what?
So it's because the easements aren't changing. It's the lot lines that are changing. So right.
Relative to the easement.
Some of the lots are getting a little bigger. Some of them are getting slightly smaller. I should say that there were some lots that in the current plan are 52 feet wide. The new minimum lot width is actually 53 feet wide, the new average. And so from a lot width standpoint, the smallest lots are actually getting 1 foot wider, which I think is a benefit to the residents that would live on those lots.
Just maybe let me take a shot, see if I can repeat back what you said. So final site plan occurs. Planning spends years on it. They approved what we see here.
680 hours.
Yep, 680 hours. I was there for a few of them. Then council approves the final site plan, you know, that was brought forward to planning commission. And then after that approval, then you'd say detail engineering work begins.
Correct.
And then when you do the detail engineering work, it's in there that you find, let's say, where incremental adjustments are required based on any number of things. It's the exact same thing when I'm building a car. I release tool steel and sometimes I gotta change the tool steel for production because we just don't know, you know? So I want, just for clarity purposes, because I had no idea where this came from 36 hours ago. And now that I'm more into this and understand what's going on, it's the lines for the easements have not changed because that's basically the hardware plan for the utilities. But now to center them for fairness, you're going to shift the lot line on top of that so that the easement is where it should be relative to both adjacent homes, which we had no way of knowing at final site plan approval, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is not unusual at all, especially for something on this scale.
This is very typical. And like I said, if not for a development agreement,
We wouldn't even
seen
see
it.
it.
Right.
This is very.
You would handle
This is the DA that's here, and then you're also, as you noted in the DA, this is a minor site plan change, because otherwise, if it wasn't, I would be stop, pull the cord, this goes back to planning for discussion like it's doing with some of the stuff that HP is doing. This clearly doesn't meet that threshold.
That's a major one. Right.
And I don't want to speak for Donna, but as you talked to Donna Tinberg, the chair of the planning commission, about this, so she was aware of it, so.
Right, and the rest
Yeah,
of the
and-
planning commission will be made formally aware in writing after administrative changes is approved. And I should mention, relative to a zoning standpoint from the site plan, the setbacks that were approved are not changing. So all of the buildings are still maintaining the approved setbacks. So there isn't a change from that standpoint.
Great.
So what planning approved is still pristine. It's the matter, it's the houses, it's the architecture, it's the setbacks, it's the lot sizes, the number of single family homes. Everything is the same as was approved. This is a administrative update based on where the hardware for the utilities is required to go to center on the lot lines. That's it. That's all that is happening here tonight.
An administrative cleanup.
Correct.
Yeah.
And really, it's a cleanup in a positive direction.
it
It's
really-
less of a
Yeah,
deviation.
it makes the
Great.
smaller
Less
lots.
deviations.
And this is a good thing that it's not a major problem. We'll
right.
run into those, but right
Yeah,
now.
we will.
We'll have our opportunity.
Every day is an
Right, let,
opportunity.
no,
Okay, I just wanted to lay that out. So that
Yeah, no,
I
that's what she
understand.
said.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's it.
You bet. Any other questions from us?
I have observations since there's a toll rep in the room, but.
Okay, and I'm gonna open it up if they have any other questions.
Okay, but yeah, so this is just an
Done before?
observation before, because it's not for deliberation, so it's just.
Okay.
So in this, inadvertently, there's street names in here. So street names, I would hope council will be apprised of the public street names and we can discuss those. And I know the alley names are there, but that is private property, so they can name those and how they want. Is that correct?
That is
The
correct.
alleys? Yes. So I can't see it in here because of course this is on the map. Also, it somehow ended up on Google Maps and I can't see it on here anymore. There was an alley named Broodmare and I'm assuming that's gone. So, anyway, so, yeah, so just as notice, that is not a good.
You'll be
name.
part of the final naming of the alleys and
Yep.
Well, no, I think they have.
they do, but you
Okay,
will be
well,
aware of the real name.
Broodmare should not be there. And then I hope that whenever it comes to the formal names for the public streets, that will be brought to council.
Streets that are dedicated to the public will go through a dedication process that ultimately gets approved by council.
Great, okay.
Great.
So that was it, just, it was an opportunity.
You're right.
Thank you for being.
Because a lot were,
Thank you.
when you put the whole opportunity online, had to put names out there, so we know at the end it'll
Yeah.
come through
I don't
this
believe it was the
process.
developer that had the street names. They somehow Google got.
It
them.
was so
Yeah.
bizarre.
Yeah.
It was, no, I had my phone lit up like Christmas tree that day, so good. Any comments from those in public? I assumed you would have a comment. Come right up. I missed you up here.
Lenore Lewandowski, 119 Randolph Street. So Justin did a great job of explaining this because I didn't quite understand it when I looked at it online. And so I understand having to move those lot lines to align the utilities. So I just want to confirm some things because these were my concerns before Justin did his great explanation. One, that the setbacks were being maintained. We didn't mention FAR at all, and I don't know if that's something that we have to think about.
Justin will talk about that on
Part of the,
Yeah.
part of the agreement.
So
Yep.
I just wanted that to be clarified that because you're changing the lot size, what you can put up now has to still fit in those FAR guidelines. And also just question, because you're now changing some of the lot sizes, the types of home plans that are being offered, Justin said they didn't need to be changed, that there was still plenty, there's 24 options out there. And will those 24 options still be able to accommodate those new lot sizes and do it well? That was my concern. So, thanks. Thank you.
And for I might have the answer. Just let me see if anything else. Anything else from those in Steve, please.
Again, Steve Kirk, 502 Ville. Being a resident of Bealtown, I understand that some of the stormwater runoff has been changed. And I wonder if Justin could possibly talk on that. Now all the water from Bealtown is being channeled in to a location on near the river. And so just to let, since there are still the residents along River Street are quite low, I want to make sure that there's no chance of flooding on those properties. So if that's possible.
Happy to talk with you
Yeah.
offline.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'll get that to that.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Stay there for a sec. Is there anybody online with a hand up?
There are no callers online at this
Going
time.
once?
There are no callers online at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm closing off public comment. I would ask for you to get with two individuals tomorrow. CC the council on that, so we may know, but we want to know what you say to each and everybody in here, so.
And I would probably actually refer Commissioner Kirk to Mike Dominey, our DPW
Right,
director.
that's why I'm saying that too, because he might not have all the answers that you're asking today. I know it's not a Q&A, but I want to get you those answers by tomorrow. And if you could have you and Mike just CC us or the city manager and he'll get that information to us to know that it was responded to.
And just relative to the FAR comment, all of the detached units have to comply with FAR. And so with the 24 different house plans, some of the smaller lots may not be able to accommodate the largest house and there's anti-monotony codes. So there's requirements for the different spacing between the different dwelling types and house plans. And so there's multiple options for each of them.
I didn't want to tell her, but yes. Okay, good. So with that, you are looking for
Do you want me to?
a motion to go forward? Yes.
I move to approve the amendment to the Downs Plan Development Agreement as presented and authorize the Community Development Director to sign the approval.
So we have a motion. Do we have support for that motion?
I'll support it.
We have support. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I think we can do this too. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Great. You're off the hook. So
You had a lot of.
would you like to? You absolutely, why don't you come up here because they can hear you online. We have about 30 or 40.
If we should.
Yeah, so I did not mean not to call on you, but please.
I just want to let you know that Justin is a very good and capable planner. Me and him both are graduates of White Lake Township. So when I left my planning position at White Lake to be the planning director in Ypsilanti Township, he filled in that spot. So we both come from the same tutelage. And he's very capable, and I appreciate his help getting all this drafted in before you this evening, and I really appreciate your vote. My name is Jason Icawangeli.
Oh,
I'm also
welcome.
a certified planner. So yeah, you have a great planning director here with Justin. So thank you again.
Thank you very much for your comment. Justin, we thank you very much. You can pay him later. So yeah, was that a 20 or a 100? Okay, good that you slipped them. So with that,
right now.
go to a closed door session, just an update today. There's no reason to stick around. I'm going to have people do their closing comments right now because there's nothing when we come back. So that is that there's no vote. We're just getting a little update on something small in the city, believe it or not. I know there's usually all these big things, but something small. So before we close, it was kind of neat. As I look around, I saw some of you at the Memorial Day services. We had a great day, a great parade. There was hundreds and hundreds of people up at Rural Hill. It was a great day for the city of Northville, for the community. Alyssa Slotkin came and others to be part of that. Shortly after that, a lot of us, I went up with Alyssa to the policy conference to get our worth with each and every one of the legislators. So we had great meetings with Eagle because we have a lot of things going on with them. With the governor, I had one-on-one and other people, including I went Peters, I sat down. Haley Stevens called me 3 times on the way up. So it was great. SEMCOG, we all do this for the benefit of Northville. Everyone, the 5 of us. Taxes haven't gone up for all these things that you see going around on in Northville. I get a kick out of it once in a while. These are funded through different grants, and it's because of the work of each and every one of us up here. So I just wanted to mention that. And I wanted to mention also the rumors of my demise were highly overrated. So I appreciate all the prayers and thoughts. I had an opportunity about a week or so ago. So thank you on that. That's all I have to say. But it was great to see everybody over Memorial Day. And we did a lot of very important things up at Mackinac Island. I'm not a partier. I don't drink. I see everybody one-on-one, and I have it set up before I go up for our benefit. And you can see, and I get all the input, and I go, others are on the phone with these people. So thank you for all you do. Makes our job a lot easier. That's all I have to say. Others from John.
I can kick it off. First, Mr. Mayor, you know, we're all very happy that you are healthy and back, and your energy level is obviously back above 100%.
Appreciate that.
But glad everything went well, and we're all back together.
Thank you.
What I wanted to highlight is most of you know, because I talk about it probably too much, but that I coach track and cross country. On Saturday, I had the opportunity to coach my daughter, her track team, and cheer on a whole lot of Northville kids at the Division I state meet. And I want to just start with a congratulations to our Northville boys who finished 2nd overall. Congratulations to every kid that qualified for states. That is an incredible achievement. And highlight just a few, 11 individual kids, some did it multiple times, that earned all state honors. Our Northville's 4x8 team was once again the state champions. We had 2 kids get all state in the 1600. We had 3 from Northville that were all state in the 800. We had 2 in the 3200. You might notice a distance theme going on there. We had 1 from Mercy who lives in Northville who was all state as a member of the 4x4 team. And our I will share, but I'm not going to name individuals. And we had the Northville 4x4 relay team also made all state. These are some really special kids, incredibly hardworking, and I am so proud of what all of them have done. So just wanted to call that out. It was an amazing day on Saturday. I obviously, as you can probably tell, have not gotten my voice fully back, but it's getting closer. And then the last thing I'm going to say is, and I'm going to be super cheesy on this one, but it is my 10-year-old Georgia's birthday today.
Oh.
So happy birthday to Georgia, and I will be home soon, so you can open presents before bedtime.
Good.
I will mention it was Ainsley Carter.
Anybody else that'd like to share?
I can't beat that, but Wednesday was my daughter's sweet 16. So if you're out and about driving, look out.
Okay. Woo! She's got a Corvette now? Okay, good.
Get her a car.
Yeah.
She's sharing a car in the family.
Is that a Ford? Okay, good.
We bought it at a Ford dealership.
Okay,
It's a
good.
Chevy.
Glad to hear.
Long story.
Mayor Pro Tem. Good. Thank you for all you do for the city, those that are online, those that are here. We can't do it without you. 27 boards and committees, 6.5% of all our citizens are doing the stuff, and we're trying to knock down the hurdles to get it done for the city. So thank you very much. I'm looking for a motion to go to closed session. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Oh, I think we actually have to
Yeah,
say
we have to follow
it in full.
Oh,
Well, do we have to, oh, we have to, I've
you have
got.
a motion in there that I want you to read to me because I can't read it.
We'll read it. Hold on. Oh, now I have to make it bigger than like 2%.
Yes, you do.
I
It's kind of tough getting older.
Well, when it's that big,
Bigger
it's nothing
glasses.
to do with age.
I know.
Just like we caught Barbara on process.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, you know, you can have your moment.
Very disappointed.
So I move that we go into closed session to discuss an attorney-client privilege memorandum pursuant to MCL 15.268(1)H. It's to enter a closed session in accordance with section 8(1)H of the Open Meetings Act to discuss attorney-client privilege memorandum. Is that? I wasn't sure which part of
So
that.
I'm looking for support of that motion.
I'll support.
Okay, we have to do a roll call on this. If you could do that roll call.
Carter,
Yes.
Janetti,
Yes.
Krenz,
Yes.
Morosky Brown,
Yes.
Turnbull.
Yes. Good. We are going to close session. We are going downstairs. Take your time as you